Who told you that?
Well, you're J. Cole. We have to know.
That's never he just asked the craziest question, which, yes, the answer is yes, I did. I'm not gonna say I was the first to tell him. There was a, what's my man name that used to work for Dre? Light-skinned dude? Manny? When I brought him up to Dre, yo, you gotta sign this kid from Compton, boom, boom, Kendrick, boom, boom. And then Manny was like, oh yeah, that's the kid I was telling you about, boom, boom, boom. So shout out to Dr. Dre. He made the right decision.
Drake and J. Cole supposedly teaming up behind the scenes. And the target, Kendrick Lamar. Just wild, right?
Wow. Okay, that's a heavy rumor. But what's fascinating, if you think about it, isn't just the idea itself, but what it says about the top tier, you know?
Right.
For artists at that level, Drake, Cole, to even potentially think about a joint strategy against another top artist, that suggests some really intense competition we rarely get a direct look at.
Totally. Hints at those power dynamics.
Exactly. The real hierarchies, maybe.
But here's the kicker.
Yeah.
And honestly, this is the part that just, wow. The word on the street, this grand plan.
Yeah.
Total face plant, like completely backfired.
Yeah.
Instead of sidelining Kendrick, it kind of looks like Drake and Cole ended up maybe putting themselves in a trickier position.
Huh. Talk about a plot twist indeed. You know, strategically speaking, sometimes what looks like an advantage, like teaming up, can actually create new problems, new vulnerabilities.
How so?
Well, a public alliance, or even a perceived one, it can be read in so many ways. By Kendrick, sure, but also by the fans, by the whole culture. It might not land how they intended, could shift how people see them.
That makes sense. And think back for a second. Before this all really blew up, J. Cole he was publicly praising Kendrick. Giving him major props.
Oh, absolutely. There's clear respect there, artist to artist. Seemed genuine.
So the idea that he'd then be part of some scheme to, undermine Kendrick, it feels like a massive shift, doesn't it? What do you make of that apparent flip?
That's a really key point. It forces you to wonder what could have possibly triggered that kind of change. Was it purely tactical? You know, a cold calculation based on competitive pressure?
Or something else?
Or did other things come into play? Maybe something shifted in the dynamic between the quote-unquote big three, a term Cole himself has sort of acknowledged, those unspoken rankings.
Right, the big three. And just before Kendrick dropped that verse on the one that properly stirred the plot.
Catalyst, yeah.
Drake and Cole were basically joined at the hip, touring together, bigging each other up constantly on stage, dropping first-person shooter. They were really pushing this united front.
The timing of Kendrick's verse hitting right after that tour wrapped, or as it was wrapping, that's definitely interesting.
Yeah, why?
Well, think about it. A joint response would have been harder, logistically, right? Cole's off the road, maybe decompressing. Drake's still maybe finishing dates. It could divide focus. It kind of created this window.
Okay. And open it for Kendrick. So we've got this supposed secret plan that apparently goes wrong, and Kendrick's right there in the mix. What do you think were the big missteps? If this strategy failed, like people say, what made it backfire?
Well, first off, gotta say, a lot of this is still speculation, right? Based on interpretations and whispers.
Sure. No smoking gun necessary.
Exactly. But if we just look at how things unfolded, it's possible that the idea of them coordinating, even if it wasn't a full-blown war room plan, might have actually rallied support for Kendrick.
Like an underdog effect.
Sort of. In these kinds of rivalries, authenticity, individual artistic strength, that stuff really hits home with the audience. A perceived team-up might feel less organic, maybe?
Okay. Then comes J. Cole's response. 7-minute drill. Bang. It's out. Direct reply to Kendrick.
No ambiguity there.
But then, almost as fast as it landed, poof, it's pulled from streaming, just vanishes. What is your take on that specific move, the rapid disappearance?
That retraction is, it's huge, a really crucial piece of this whole puzzle. It strongly suggests Cole had second thoughts, right? A quick reassessment.
Why though? Backlash.
Maybe the reaction wasn't what he expected. Or maybe he just didn't feel right about it after the fact. It definitely signals a kind of course correction, maybe based on the immediate fallout or just his own gut feeling changing.
And even though, let's be real, 7-minute drill might not be remembered as the lyrical knockout punch of this entire saga.
Probably not. No.
You absolutely cannot deny its impact. It was the first official shot fired back after, it was like the match hitting the gasoline.
Precisely. Kendrick's verse lit the fuse, absolutely. But Cole's direct response, that's what turned the tension into a full-blown, okay, it's really happening lyrical war. It told everyone, game on, and it basically invited everyone else to pick a side or jump in.
And boy, did they jump in. It wasn't just Kendrick, Drake, and Cole for long, was it? Suddenly you had future Metro Boomin weighing in heavily, Rick Ross, even ASAP Rocky chimed in later. The whole thing just exploded.
Yeah.
How much of that escalation do you trace back specifically to 7 Minute Drill?
I think 7 Minute Drill was a massive catalyst. Cole deciding to respond directly, and just the act of someone of his stature dropping a diss track like that, it legitimized the whole thing as a serious beef.
Right, it wasn't just subliminals anymore.
Exactly. It created this domino effect. It signaled the gloves were truly off, and that encouraged others, people with their own history or allegiances to get involved.
So, looking back now, it's been roughly a year since 7 Minute Drill had its brief moment. What's its lasting mark? Its cultural footprint? Is it a track people still talk about or just a blip?
It might not be on repeat on everyone's playlist from that era,
Probably not.
but historically, it holds this really unique, significant spot. It marks that point of no return. The moment things went from simmering tension, speculation, to just open conflict, its legacy isn't maybe in the bars themselves, but in its role as the trigger, the first official reply that set off the chain reaction.
What about J. Cole himself? After pulling it, he even seemed to express some regret publicly, didn't he? Sounded like he felt it was maybe a mistake.
He did. He was quite open about that.
Does that suggest maybe a shift in how he views competition or his whole pursuit of being, the greatest? Will he keep chasing that top spot in the same way, or did this whole thing change his outlook?
That public reflection from Cole is...
Yeah.
It's really interesting. It makes you wonder about his path forward. Did this intense battle and the fallout from his response make him rethink his whole approach, his definition of greatness, his legacy? It hints at maybe some internal conflict, or at least a serious moment of reflection right in the middle of a very public storm.
Yeah, it's like he was right there pushing for that #1 spot, and this whole episode just threw him for a loop. You got to wonder what he learned from it all.
It definitely highlights the risks, doesn't it? The vulnerabilities that come with playing at the absolute highest level, especially in a field like hip-hop, which is so dynamic, so culturally potent. Chasing greatness means navigating some really complex relationships and unpredictable public reactions.
So, for you listening, thinking back on 7 Minute Drill, what are your thoughts now? Was it crucial, a necessary step in the battle, or just kind of footnote? And what do you think is next for J. Cole? Where does he go from here? Definitely let us know.
Yeah, curious to hear those takes. And, the story, it's clearly still unfolding. There are definitely more chapters to come in this whole saga. We'll be here breaking it down as it happens.
Absolutely. This whole situation has so many layers, way more than it first seemed, and we're really just scratching the surface today. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.